Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Smart podcast. I am your host, Dr. Karen Litzy, and today's episode might just change the way you look at the most fundamental thing your body does every single day. My guests today are two of the most credible voices in movement science, and they just released a national best-selling book together that Adam Grant called, and I quote, surprisingly interesting, thought-provoking, and practical. Walk, that's the name of the book, is about much more than counting your steps. It's about enriching your life. This book does for walking what breath did for breathing, which is very high praise. So I'm so happy to welcome Dr. Courtney Conley and Dr. Milica McDowell. Dr. Conley is a leading foot and gait expert and the founder of Gait Happens. She has built her career helping people understand how we walk matters, how stronger, healthier feet can change everything from pain to performance. Dr. Milica McDowell is the national best-selling author of Walk. She's a doctor of physical therapy with over 20 years of experience, a walker, a runner, a triathlete, and a mom. So together they wrote the book Walk. So ladies, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us. That was
Glad
quite
to be
an
here.
intro. I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so exciting. I mean, I just think it's amazing that anyone can write a book. And so like when you write a book and people really like it, I mean, that must feel really, really good, like really validating, right?
I have to pinch myself quite a bit. Yes.
Yeah. It's amazing. Anyway, so let's get into it. So we've got a couple of questions. We're going to kind of dig into what you both do. We've got a lightning round a little bit later in the episode. So let's get to it. So as I said, your book is called Walk, which sounds kind of radically simple. But again, people like simplicity. But in the book, you say that walking is actually a sixth vital sign. So what do you mean by that? And what does it change about how we should think about this activity most of us barely give a second thought to? So Courtney, let's start with you.
What we wanted to do with the conversation of walking was to put it in the same category, this physiological necessity, as breathing and sleeping. That's how important it is to be viewed outside of just exercise. You know, I think sometimes we think of exercise as optional. I'm going to exercise today. We don't want walking to be viewed like that. You wouldn't not sleep for a day. You certainly wouldn't breathe for a day. And that's how we want walking to be viewed, is this physiological necessity. Because when you look at what it does, it's this core biological input that our bodies, we as human beings, have been designed to do. I mean, we're bipeds. We have been designed, our evolution is to put one step in front of the other. And this low to moderate intensity, repetitive activity stimulates every system in our body, our musculoskeletal system, our nervous system, our digestive system. So it's one of those things that has to happen every single day.
Yeah, ideally, right? And
Yeah.
Milica, in the book, it sort of busts this 10,000 steps myth right out of the gate. So can you talk a little bit more about the evidence-based optimal step count and where did the 10,000 steps even come from? Because I know I'm also a physical therapist and that's always something we hear is you got to get in your 10,000 steps. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, so the 10,000 steps is a leftover from a Japanese pedometer marketing campaign in 1960 following the Tokyo Olympics. And so it's been in the conventional conversation for, 60 years at this point. Never was a science-backed benchmark. And so it is something that a lot of people feel is unapproachable. They feel intimidated by it. They're discouraged if they don't hit that specific number. And so we really want to shift that conversation to thinking about step counts like a menu at a restaurant. There's all sorts of things on the menu, and depending on what you want is what you get. And so there are step counts that are beneficial for dementia management and prevention. There are step counts great for musculoskeletal health. There's ones for mental health, depression. We have tons of different numbers that are meaningful from a cardiovascular disease and death perspective. There's 7 types of cancer that are affected by step counts. And so to be simple, you want to be between 3,500 and 8,500. And then in that range is really where a lot of that magic happens.
Yeah. And I feel like that's so much more doable for people, because to your point, when people heard 10,000 steps, they're like, forget it. Like, there's no way I'm going to get it. So then they just maybe even walk less, because if it's too daunting, like you'd be like, oh, forget it. I'm never going to hit it. So why even try?
I think that's a possibility. And we really emphasize the idea that you can snack on walking throughout the day, and all those little moments add up. You don't have to do it all at once in one huge chunk. And so the concept of the micro walk is a walk that is 500 steps or 5 minutes. And that's enough to get into a little bit of a steady state rhythm, which can create a lot of different benefits, versus what we call ambient walking, which is I walk to the copying machine in my office. I walk to get the mail. I maybe walk to make myself a cup of coffee. Those little broken up, really fractured and fragmented steps count, right? It's all good movement, but it isn't going to give you the type of benefits that the intentional or continuous walking does. So a great rule of thumb is at least 5 minutes, if you will, counts and is helping to boost you toward that overall cumulative step count during the day, which is then the one that benefits wellness today, longevity tomorrow, and disease protection.
You know, I think, Karen, it's been interesting since the book has been released, the feedback that we're getting as far as the step count conversation. You know, this conversation is inclusive. There's not anybody, you know, barring an injury or trauma, that is not sitting somewhere along the walking spectrum. So what we wanted to do was really meet people where they are. If you're someone who's taking less than 2,500 steps a day, then we have a conversation about how to improve that and how to make that safe and comfortable for you. We also have the conversation of, if you're getting 15,000 steps a day, great. You know, that's also wonderful. We should also be having the and conversation. Are you doing other things like strength training and power training? And we also talk about that in the book. So it's this spectrum of really meeting people where they are. And no matter where you sit along there should be something for you to learn.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up, because I think that helps not just, let's say, people who may read the book who aren't in healthcare, but also for people like us who are in healthcare. It gives us that little bit of incentive to meet people where they're at as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I think that's so important. I mean, being in clinical practice, that is probably the biggest take home is everybody comes to the table with something different. You know, different histories, different, you know, traumas and injuries, and meeting them where they are and making them feel safe and comfortable, saying this is an empowering conversation. That's what I want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa?
My favorite part of this 10,000 step myth busting, the trolls came out being like, oh yeah, tell people to be lazy, tell them to be less active. And here's where my beef starts with the trolls. Most of them are health and fitness professionals. Like, you look at these mean comments online and it's like, so-and-so personal trainer, so-and-so movement specialist, so-and-so PT. And I'm like, wait a minute. So what's really the message is exactly what Courtney said, is there's a step count for everyone depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. So let's say you have family history of depression, you've had postpartum depression, you know that that's something you need to manage in your life. Well, guess what? 5,500 reduces depression symptoms, 7,500 reduces lifetime risk of developing it. Notice I did not say 10K. And so it's been really interesting to see people just like really have this strong attachment to 10K. And I'm like, hey, you know, in the 1940s, people thought smoking was healthy, right? Like, we were children, we didn't wear seatbelts. Like, information changes. Let's kind of get with the times. And I think a message to your aspect of the audience that are healthcare providers, this is our responsibility to share evidence-based information with our patients when we're interviewed and when we have a platform. And so I really think that the people whose feathers have gotten ruffled by us debunking this 10,000 step benchmark are the ones who are like, oh, wait, like I'm holding on to the information I've believed for the last 30 years and I don't want to learn anything new. So it's a good challenge. It's like definitely causing a lot of conversation, which I think is very positive.
I think so too. And, it's like with everything, when you hear something that you don't believe or that challenges your very like tightly held beliefs, the first thing you want to do is lash out and say, there's no way this can be possible. Instead of saying, well, let me take a look and see why they're making these claims.
Yeah. Tell me more. Let me investigate. Let me learn a little more. Yeah.
Right. So it comes down to to the trolls, like sometimes it's worth your while to be open-minded because it may actually help the people that you're purportedly trying to help. So that's my message to the trolls.
Yes. If they're listening, dear
if they're
trolls,
listening,
read a research article.
Or what is Seth Meyers calls them jackals.
Oh,
on his
the jackals.
show. He calls them the jackals. So they'll put comments underneath his YouTube videos. And then he does a whole thing on Thursdays called Corrections, where he responds to some of the jackals.
I love it.
That's really funny.
It's really funny.
I think Courtney and I are going to do that. We're going to start our own podcast. It's going to be to the jackals and the trolls.
Exactly. And just respond. That's all he does is respond. And it's hilarious. And sometimes he's like, oh, maybe we did get that wrong. No, we didn't. And everyone is addressed and even the jackals are happy. So you're making everybody happy.
Right.
So Courtney, I want you to talk a little bit more about gait mechanics and the biomechanics. And at what point did you realize that how people walk were predicting things far beyond their foot pain? Because you kind of came at this from a more of like a gait mechanics, maybe let's say biomechanic standpoint.
Yes, I like to say a healthy obsession with foot and gait mechanics. It was funny was when Melissa and I decided to write this book, I was like, Melissa, let's write a book on feet. And she was like, no. She's like, I think we need a little more than that. And I'm not so sure that people are going to want to get as excited about the big toe as you are, but I still have hope for that big toe book one day. I think watching someone walk is so beautifully fascinating. It's a window to their nervous systems. You can tell when someone has had a good day or a bad day. They got fired, they got promoted. They kind of wear their emotions with their walking gait. And I am fascinated by that. I'm also fascinated by the fact that we as human beings were designed to walk for very long periods of time and to be efficient. And what has happened? Why can we no longer do that? Why is my office so busy with people with foot pain and ankle pain and people coming in asking me, I feel like I forget how to walk, when this is something that we should be able to do very well. And so I have studied it for many years, and that's kind of what got me on all of this, obsession with the foot, because it's one of the parts of our body that I think we forget about. I'm not sure why, whether it's because it's hidden in a shoe or from a rehabilitation perspective, we just don't treat the foot like we would the rest of the human body. But I think we need to start paying attention, because it is the foot that has evolved to keep us upright and balanced. It is the sensory information that we gain from the ground that makes us a stable human being, able to walk for long distances. So when I see statistics like 1 in 3 people have foot pain, it's alarming to me. And I really feel that if we just started paying attention, we could really change that around.
Yeah, I was just saying to a patient today, as I was looking at his foot, he was standing, I was like, don't you think it's kind of amazing how this little foot, comparatively speaking to the rest of our body, is strong enough to hold up your entire body? Isn't that amazing? And he's like, I guess so. And I was like, you don't find that fascinating?
If I was in that room, I would have been like very excited when you said that.
And I was like, isn't that something? And he's like a mathematician. I'm like, even from a math perspective, can't you just agree? Like the small foot, the big body, like it's crazy.
You should throw some numbers at him. When you're walking, your foot takes on,
give me
2
the
times your
numbers.
body weight.
Yeah.
There's certain parts of your foot that take on multiple times of your body weight. When you run, there's parts of your foot that take on 8, 9, 10, 11 times your body weight. The foot was beautifully designed. It is designed to handle multiple times your body weight with no assistance. That's no orthotic. That's no special shoe. The muscles and the ligaments and the structure of the foot was designed to handle load. So it's well equipped.
Mm-hmm.
So why are there all these problems?
Yeah. Why?
We don't pay attention.
Right.
We have not strengthened. When we think about strength training, I think it's very exciting. Everybody's getting on like, we have to strength train. We have to power train. You have to do those things below the knee. You can't build these very strong bodies on feet that can't handle those loads.
Mm-hmm.
And then the footwear conversation. So,
we'll get
there's
to
a
that.
lot there.
Yeah. We're going to get to that footwear conversation in a minute. Now, I don't want to gloss over, Melissa, what you said earlier about talking about maybe how walking can reduce cancer, depression, dementia. So you guys certainly compiled a lot of research, but can you dive into that a little bit deeper for us and talk about kind of what's happening at a biological level that makes it very powerful, that makes walking powerful?
Yep. So to dabble in some biochem, we start changing hormones. You start changing body temperature. You start changing cerebral blood flow. Walking starts to release neurologic growth factors in the brain. And so like from the chin up, all sorts of things are happening. And when we get into steady state, that is what triggers that cascade. And so when you think about the benefits that you're getting when you're walking, you obviously have musculoskeletal benefits. You're going to have neuromuscular benefits. Your balance system is going to get better. Reaction time will get better. Right to left body coordination, those sorts of things. But from the chin up, we are really watering the garden. And that's where these more profound effects that are going to be multi-system are originated, right? So if you have somebody that is headed into some sort of cognitive decline, I don't care how strong their calves are, because from the chin up, things aren't working, right? And so it becomes one of those, prioritizations of our ability to really boost that cognitive function, manage our hormones. We have a really strong effect on cortisol with walking. And that, as we know, is a hormone that when it gets too elevated, creates a lot of arousal. It hypes us up. It can contribute to stress. But we also know that when we decrease cortisol, what does it do? It takes us to sleepy town. And so it just becomes this conversation, I think, for the practitioners that are listening. Walking can be and should be something we are recommending to patients at a dosage that meets them for what they need. Anxiety, depression. There's some really phenomenal research for postpartum depression for moms. There's a whole peri and post and during menopause conversation for women in midlife. And so I think it's just a call to action to our medical colleagues to say, hey, like, if you own a physical therapy practice and you're primarily treating midlife women, do some reading and get your hands wrapped around the conversations about how walking can come in and help manage certain problems that we see in peri and during menopause. Hot flushes, joint pain, motivation, mood, crabbiness. There's some really specific step counts in there. All the rage. So if you want to reduce your rage, you should go 10,000 steps or more. Let's say that. But you're right, Karen. And it is, just something that I think has a lot of power for us to be more specific. And that specificity ties back into that conversation. As we said, 10K isn't really a benchmark. And as Courtney mentioned, if somebody is very inactive, and as clinicians, we've all treated those individuals. They're ill, they're recovering, they've taken a long layoff, they've had a trauma, a surgery, a childbirth, whatever. That 2,500 mark is the absolute basement. if you're below 2,500, your risks of essentially like keeling over at any moment are very high. That's where the cardiovascular disease risk statistics just get out of control. But if you can talk someone who's a 2,500 step a day average into getting up to 3,000, that reduces risks of all cause mortality, 14 types of death, by 7%. And if you get them up to 3,500, you reduce that risk by 15%. And that's a conversation that I think, from a step count standpoint, therapists need to know. Anybody who's a medical provider or movement specialist who's listening, if you've got individuals that are under that 3,500 threshold, that needs to be on their goal sheet. And you start there.
Yeah.
Melissa, that was so well said. It should be on every doctor's prescription pad. We are in the business of treating people in pain, right? And there's all this talk of like biopsychosocial, and you treat people that are in chronic pain, and we want to give them their list of exercises. Here's your, squats. Here's your bird dog. Here's your this. Walking should be on there, especially if they're in chronic pain, because there's no other activity that can treat all of those things. You put loads through your joints, you put loads through your body, you drive it, you have blood flow to your brain. It is this, panacea of medicine that can really, really check in with every single system in our body. So yes, I think that should be like, it's on the list. When my patients get an email from me, when my new patients come in, it's like, you're going to do this, you're going to do some foot stuff. And I also want to know what your step count is and how we're incorporating walking more into your life, no matter where you sit on that spectrum.
Yeah. And I'm so happy that you mentioned chronic pain, because that's something that I prescribe regularly for my patients with chronic pain, if they are able. And sometimes they'll say, oh, but I'm in so much pain, I can barely walk to the hallway. And I say, great, walk to the hallway.
Yeah, that's right.
And walk back. And then start walking down the hallway and walk back. And then do it a couple more times as you get more and more confident and start to have a little less pain because of that walking movement. And Melissa, it's funny, you answered the next question I was going to ask. You leapfrogged right over me. Because I was going to say, how do we, as practitioners, how do we have that conversation around walking with our patients so that we get behavior change? And I think you kind of said it, but let's reiterate it, because I think it's so important.
I think the behavior change conversation is very simple in the sense of, you don't need a membership. You don't need additional activity. Let me start over. You don't need a membership. You don't need additional training. It's not a complicated activity. You can literally do it in your home or walk out your front door if you have the capacity to walk. The barrier to entry is zero for most individuals. And that's why I really challenge the healthcare folks listening that this is something that can't be overlooked. If you've got someone with a dysfunctional breathing pattern and you're not correcting it and they're in chronic pain, that's a miss. If you have somebody who's not walking enough and they're in chronic pain and you're not sprinkling walking into their prescription, it's a miss. And so it really is this opportunity for us to do better and to give them something, like Courtney said, okay, do the bird dog. How do I do it? What do I do? Do I need the Bosu? Do I need a foam roller? Should I point my leg this way? Like, there's no complexity to the activity. And so for me, I think it really just becomes something that we can give them a win. And those little small wins add up. It's that those little tiny actions start to create a bigger, adherence, and that internal motivation and self-efficacy is such a big part of what we're trying to build with patients, especially when they are, not confident and they're scared and they're frustrated. And I know Courtney and we've been friends for 10 years. It's like, she'll have patients who come in and have seen everybody. Like Courtney's the, 8th or 9th practitioner they've seen. And at that point, they're like, I've seen everybody. What are you going to tell me that's different? And that's really where this is special.
Conversations.
Yeah, they're hard conversations. Yeah.
And I think you're also giving people, looking from that pain science background, is you're giving them a bit of an internal locus of control when everything else seems completely out of their control. You can give them something that they can use themselves to help themselves feel better. It's a huge, huge win. I mean, I have a patient with CRPS, and last week he just started walking.
Yay.
Without a boot and without any assistive device.
Yeah.
Since last December.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So it's huge.
Like should be celebrated and should be celebrated.
And it was like he's like, take a look at me. And I was like, like mouth open, jaw on the floor, right? Because it's such a huge thing. And his mood instantly better than the week before. So it's everything you just said. Exactly. Exactly. And for those patients, like, you don't give up on them. You keep going. So for him, I was like, I just want you to walk from like here to the bathroom and back. Let's start with that. And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think, the pain chapter, I say this all the time. That's my favorite chapter, right, Melissa? When you were writing the book, I was like, this is my favorite chapter. No, this is my favorite chapter. But that pain chapter, I think sometimes patients think that they have to be pain-free before. It's like, I have to get to pain-free living before I can start to do something. And I really think we need to change that conversation. It is, if you wait till you're pain-free, you're going to wait for a very long time. It's living on this planet. It's how do we live well with it? What can we do to get you moving, to get your body going so that you can start to build confidence in your movement? And then having the conversation afterwards. We talk about a patient of mine in the book who was in chronic foot pain for years. And we had to start him. I mean, we started with the micro walk, 5 minutes. And I said, how do you feel that night and the next morning? Not any worse, not any better. Perfect.
Great.
This is green light for us.
That's a win.
That's a win. Right. I think what he was initially looking for was, well, if I go for a walk, then I must feel better afterwards. That's not how it works. Yeah. It is this consistency. It's this, I'm okay.
That's right.
It's going to be okay if I just keep going. And that's something that I think we as clinicians can guide on, but we have to empower the person to say, I'm okay. I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not easy, and it doesn't happen in the first visit. It may not happen in the second. It may not happen in the first month. These things take time, especially like you said, a person with pain for 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 years. Yeah. They're always waiting for the next shoe to drop. Yeah. Of, oh no, it's going to be worse. If I do this, it's going to make me worse. I can't do it. Right. So there's a lot of like kinesiophobia and, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, we can talk about that forever, but I would like to talk about, again, something that you mentioned earlier, the shoes. So are there wrong shoes? Are there right shoes? What does it mean? How does it change from biomechanical standpoint? The floor is yours.
The answer is yes.
Yes and yes.
It was really fun kind of doing research on the history of footwear and when it all started to change. Footwear was really designed for protection, and that was really it. And then, through some changes, fashion started to overcome function. And we've kind of been on this downhill slope ever since. The easiest way I like to put it is footwear should respect the anatomy of your foot. Just plain and simple. The widest part of your foot is your toes for a reason. Because when we're walking, we need to have stability and strength at push off because there's multiple times our body weight going through our foot when we push off. So the foot was designed, that big toe was designed to be straight. He's a powerhouse of the foot. He can handle a lot of load. You don't want to mess with his positioning. You don't want to take him and jam him into a narrow toe box shoe. It's going to change the function of the foot. Yeah. So that's like on a very simple kind of level is just look at your shoe. Does it respect the anatomy of your foot? Is the widest part of your shoe the toe box, which is a very different conversation than a wide shoe?
Yes. Does that mean we have to throw out all of our Manolos?
Yeah.
Yes.
What? Melissa and we had this conversation, the footwear chapter, another one of my favorite chapters. We're not going to win the conversation of everybody needs to walk around in this type of footwear forever. This isn't an always or never conversation, right? It's okay. Just pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the opportunity to wear functional footwear that allows your foot to be in the position it was designed to be in, take it. And then you want to go on a date, you want to wear your heels, you have an event, you want to do this, by all means. We have a high heel rehab section in the book. But you got to start paying attention, because you can't just put your foot in a position that it's getting restricted over and over and over again.
Yeah.
We interviewed a flight attendant in the book, and we were not able to disclose her carrier, but it is one of the major carriers that you would see at any major airport. And we talked about uniform shoes in that industry. And the uniform standard for men and women does not respect the anatomy of the foot. They're narrow on the toe box. They have an elevated heel. They're very rigid. And it is a change from previous airline personnel shoes when the ladies wore high heels and stilettos.
Right.
And they had to wear those. Those were in the airport. And then they could change to a different shoe during boarding and during service, and then they would have to change into the stiletto in the airport. So that has changed. But where they have even changed to, and we're talking major carriers, it's still not an anatomically neutral shoe. And so you wonder why these people have bunions and hammer toes and foot pain and back pain and all sorts of other things. Nurses wore shoes like that for years. I have elderly aunts that are in their 80s that were nurses, and they've had joint replacements, and one of them just had a back fusion. I mean, and some of it is definitely due to lifting and carrying patients, and some of it you can definitely point a finger at their foundational footwear. And so it is definitely a conversation, as Courtney said. If you want to wear something that's not an anatomical neutral shoe for a short period of time, you're a grown-up. It's kind of like wearing your seatbelt or choosing to smoke a cigarette or having a glass of tequila. It's like, make your health choices. But you're always going to pay the piper. There's no free lunch is one of our favorite sayings. And so if you're compromising that anatomy, you're compromising strength and mobility for hours upon hours per day, per week, per month, per year in lifetime, that's when we see some changes that could be irreversible, changes that are going to affect up the biomechanical chain. You have somebody who comes in with hip or shoulder pain, and I have a patient I treated for 5 years, 4'11", always in a wedge, lives in Florida, always in like a glamorous wedge because she's an itty bitty, a beautiful little tiny human being. I'm 6 feet tall, so I tower over this gal, always in this wedge. And I was like, when you're home and you take those off, you are shocking your system. So maybe what we do, and she started wearing shoes at home and some really, really challenging habits to break. And it's going to affect your foot anatomy. It's going to affect your biomechanical chain and your posture. And it's a big deal.
And as clinicians, what should we be looking at in someone's footwear? So we have a patient that comes in, regardless of diagnosis. What are some questions clinicians can ask? What should we be looking at as far as what is maybe a better footwear for that person, knowing everyone's a little different?
Can I give you the first one and then Courtney can do the rest?
Okay.
60% of adults are wearing the wrong size of shoe. And that could be too long or too short, but it's a well-documented research study from 2018. And that is my biggest beef. And so I think that one of our best pillars we can stand on as healthcare educators, asking patients, when did you last have your foot measured? Do you wear the same size shoe in every brand? If they do, they're probably making a mistake somewhere because they're all made on different molds. And so to me, that is the pinnacle question with footwear. What size are you? Do you wear it the same in every brand? And have you had your foot measured? And if they have a hard time with that discussion, it's a great opportunity to print off a PDF online, measure their foot in your office, length and width, help them triangulate that to a proper sizing, and then make sure they're educated that every brand is different. If you're a 10, that does not mean you are a 10 in every single brand.
Mm-hmm. And so you can sort of print something off and have someone stand on it, and that gives you the size kind of width of their foot. So we don't need, remember the things?
Brannick device.
It's called a Brannick device.
Brannick, yeah. So for people, if you're not watching on YouTube, I'm sort of like moving my hands in and out and to the side, like when you're a kid and your mom would make you go and you step on this thing and they'd put your foot in a vice.
Black and silver.
Yes.
It was made in the United States. Its 100th birthday is this year. So we are very familiar with the Brannick device.
No kidding.
It has not had a change in its structure or function in that period of time. And it is what you will run into at every shoe store, from a Fleet Feet to a Nordstrom, probably.
Yeah. Oh, how interesting. Courtney, go ahead.
That's an important conversation with children too. I want to make sure that we just address that as well, because children's feet grow very rapidly. And so they don't give us the feedback, hey, mom, my shoes feel too tight. Or so that is about every 3 months or so, take a look at the kids' feet. It can be as simple as like taking the factory insert out of the shoe, have them put their foot on it. And oftentimes you'll see their feet like extending over it, whether it's lengthwise or over the width of it. It's time for a new shoe. So just be very cognizant of that. I think that especially with the kids, if we can pay attention to the health of their feet, I always say, and I'm dating myself here, they used to do scoliosis checks.
Oh,
like
sure.
In school.
Yeah.
I'm like, we need to be looking at feet. We need to be looking at kids' feet. What types of shoes are they in? Because if we pay attention then I feel like a lot of the things that I see, right? So bunions and neuromas and stress fractures and weakness, not only at the foot, but at the ankle. When you allow the foot to develop and the foot you can get stronger from the ground up, I think we'd see a lot less of that. But that's, my mission. But as far as the footwear is concerned, so the shoe has to be the right size. The next kind of non-negotiable is the wide toe box. The toes have to be able to splay. So again, what you could do is take out the factory insert, place your foot on there, and stand on it. Now, here's where it gets a little complicated. I want people to be able to lift up all their toes, spread them, and you should see daylight between each of your toes, and press it down on the factory insert so that the width of your toes is the widest part of your foot. If the width of your toe is sitting outside of that factory insert, when you put your foot in the shoe, it's going to taper the toes. You do not want your toes squished together. It compromises function, it compromises strength. So whenever my patients come in, whether it's heel pain or bunions or neuromas, that's kind of my first thing I talk to them about is, let's just get you in a shoe where your foot can actually breathe a little bit. And I will tell you, when they come back into the office, they think I just they're like, what happened? My foot feels so much better. And it's a very low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I almost feel bad. I'm like, I really didn't do anything. I just basically told you to wear a better shoe. But that's what an impact it can have. And then we talk about the heel to toe drop, which is the heel and toe sitting in the same plane. A lot of traditional footwear, even in, sneakers or athletic shoes, the heel is much higher than the toe. And when you look at the mechanics of the human body, the heel and the toe should be on the floor.
At the same time.
So, at the same time. If you were to stand barefoot on the ground, that's how our bodies were designed. So when you start messing around with lifting the heel, you just start changing functions. So those are the things that we look at. Where do I need to meet the patient where they are?
And where are we on orthotics? Over the counter, custom, et cetera. Now, Courtney, this was part of your toolbox.
Yes. And it still is. I mean, I always tell my patients when they come in with their like bag of shoes and their 25 pairs of orthoses, I'm not anti-foot orthotic by any means. I think there is a time and a place. I have some. And we have to understand what they do. They modify loads at the foot. So when someone has acute heel pain, or someone has an instability, or someone needs some help, by all means, help yourself. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to do what? Walk.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone can't walk because their foot hurts or their heel hurts, and a foot orthotic can help them, go for it.
Yeah.
It's the and conversation. So if you are going to wear this foot orthotic, you are also going to do these exercises to strengthen your foot, because we know that extensive usage of foot orthoses can decrease the strength of the foot. So why?
And that's a vicious cycle, very vicious cycle.
That's why, like, I have patients that come in with heel pain with plantar fasciopathy, right? And I'm like, why are you still in this same orthotic that you've had for 20 years? Because
oh my God. Yeah.
It helped me 20 years ago. I'm like, that's great. They missed the and conversation. There was no exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I keep saying this. If we look at the foot, at treating the foot like we look at everywhere else in the body, you would never deload your lumbar spine forever. You would never deload any of your tissues for years. So especially the part of the body that is designed to keep us upright and balanced. You can't deload that thing forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
that's great. Yeah.
And when we do that
conversation,
that's when we see the patients come in who are wearing a hyper cushioned shoe with a super elevated heel with rocker all the time. Mm-hmm. And then they come home and put on their indoor shoes. So to the practitioners that are listening and to the non-practitioners that are listening, if you're a person or your patients are the kind of people who come home and put on an indoor shoe, we need to have a conversation, because that is only making this problem worse.
And why is that?
The shoes are a tool for a specific job, right? And you're not walking long distances at home, and you're not at risk of getting injured at home. And if a shoe is for protection and to allow that foot to engage in that outdoor environment, why are you wearing one at home? Well, you know, I've got hard floors, or my heel hurts when I'm at home. It's because you don't have the tolerance to engage your barefoot with those surfaces. So there are some strategies of how to wean people out. And we had to do that with one of my immediate family members. She was in a hyper cushioned rockered shoe at all times. She's a very avid walker, but was having back pain and hip pain and all these other things, and had this perpetual heel pain. And I was like, you know, you're in a tapered shoe that's hyper cushioned, that has an elevated heel, and you take them off and you come home and put on the exact same pair of inside shoes. Like, something has to give here.
Right.
Lack of mobility, lack of strength, terrible awareness, because she's standing on a cushion of foam at all times.
Sure.
So those receptors are not giving her information to the brain. She had a fall, lost her balance and had a fall. And I was like, these are all yellow and red flags. Like, nobody's listening.
Sure. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks for explaining that a little bit further. Mm-hmm. Now, we're talking about foot health. We're talking about shoes. We're talking about walking. Can we talk about how your foot health and how walking relates to longevity, right? A big buzz right now is longevity medicine, right? So I think this is a little underappreciated. Excuse the sirens in the background, New York City. So I think this is kind of underappreciated by both healthcare professionals and just regular folks. So what does the research actually tell us about the foot and walking being a predictor of longevity?
You know, I think when we talk about longevity, one of the big things that comes up is our falls. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to fall. It's not good when we fall, when we age. We have increases in hip fractures, and we know what hip fractures lead to. So, you know, it's this conversation of, we don't want people to fall. if we don't want people to fall, we need to pay attention to the part of their body that is going to prevent the fall. And that is the foot and ankle. So there is some fascinating research by Karen Mickle looking at toe strength. So if you were to stand up and keep your body straight and lean forward, it's your toes pressing into the ground. It's the very first thing you will feel is your toes pressing into the ground. They decelerate you. They slow you down. Most falls occur at that first step, at the initiation of gait. So as we age, we know sarcopenia is a thing. Everybody talks about it. We lose muscle mass. Well, that also happens at your foot. You lose muscle strength and you also lose sensitivity. So when you can't feel and you don't have the strength, we shouldn't be scratching our heads going, yeah, I wonder, like there is a correlation between toe weakness and fall risk. And it's one of those things, I don't want to have the conversation. Here's another thing that people need to worry about. Another thing we got to do, strengthen our toes. Well, just take your shoes off. Do some of your workouts with your shoes off. Walk around barefoot for a couple minutes. Do some of these toe exercises that we talk about in the book. You don't have to, it doesn't take a lot. It just takes some paying attention to. So I think that really is, I don't think we think about the strength of our feet and fall risk. When you're walking down a stair, for example, that's your foot and ankle. Yes, it's quad strength. And yes, that's taking load away from the knee. But if that ankle ain't moving, you're going to have some problems. And the only way that the ankle moves is if the foot can, I'm going to get a little technical, pronate or lengthen and widen. So these are coupled motions. So sitting in a chair, walking down a stair, walking up a hill, walking down a hill. We don't want to tell our patients, hey, go sell your house and buy a ranch. We want to tell them, hey, you're going to be able to walk up and down these stairs because you have to, because we want you to.
And what do you say to people who are not comfortable being barefoot, right? Or they're afraid they're going to slip if they're barefoot or if they're wearing socks, even socks with those little sticky things on the bottom. And so they say, I just put shoes on because I don't want to slip and fall.
Small doses.
Yeah, most trips, slips, and falls are due to objects. So when you go into someone's house and do an assessment, rugs, cords, dog toys, shoes by the door, those are the things that cause people to slip, trip, and fall. It is generally not just in bare space. And so, as Court said, it is small doses, and socks are dangerous, right? So barefoot, like naked feet is best. And even if that is small doses, a few minutes, maybe cooking while you're barefoot, brushing teeth while you're barefoot, just getting out of the habit of being in indoor shoes. The New York Times actually just did a Wirecutter piece on the best indoor shoes, and we had a heart attack. We actually sent them a rebuttal. I wrote them a very nice comment in their thread saying, "Hey, this is terrible advice." And I don't think you should be telling people what shoes are good to be wearing indoors, because the best indoor footwear is no footwear. To kind of piggyback on what Courtney just said about the weakness aspect of it, and if you're in a hyper cushioned rockered shoe, guess what? The cross-sectional area of the muscles in your feet is impacted. If you are in a minimal shoe or a barefoot shoe, guess what happens to the cross-sectional area of the muscles in your feet? It gets bigger. That's Sarah Ridge's work. And Sarah Ridge studies minimal shoes, and she studies how much impact wearing a barefoot style minimal shoe has on the strength and the muscle size in the foot. A less of a shoe is like having a personal trainer for your foot. Super cushioned, like Barca lounger shoe, does not do the same thing. It does the work for you. So if something's doing the work for you, guess what's happening to those muscles? They're not getting trained with every step. And so it really becomes an educational conversation to help people understand. You think all this cushion is really good for you and it's lessening impact or you feel better and all these things. There is a dark side to cushion. And I'm not scared to say that because the science backs it up. And we know that the companies that produce these hyper cushion shoes, super shoes, are the ones with the gigantic marketing budgets, right?
Yeah.
And so the shoes that are more functional, that are thinner, that have less of these features, are not the ones that are competing with the multi-billion-dollar footwear industry.
Mm-hmm.
These are the smaller emerging brands. And some of those emerging brands are in the $100 to $400 to $500 million a year range. For sure, they're growing, absolutely. But they're not Nike, right? So it's like, a little David and Goliath conversation.
I think, Melissa, I'm going to get a t-shirt. There's a dark side to cushion. You just gave me a new t-shirt.
Mugs.
I got you. But if Courtney has a t-shirt, you have to cut off the sleeves. So those of you who are listening to the podcast, Courtney, you will always see Courtney's beautiful arms all the time. Sleeves are prisons for this lady. I bought her a t-shirt for Christmas a few years ago, took the sleeves off it, and then gave it to her.
Yes.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, if I had arms like that, I would never have sleeves either. So good for you.
Yes.
Well, I think, we're up against a lot, right? Because every time you turn around, it's don't put your foot on the ground, So I realize that, we realize that this is a challenge to thinking. And it's going to ruffle some feathers. I mean, it was very interesting to me after COVID, and you started to see all these articles, increase in foot pain. Whatever you do, don't take your shoes off, because everybody was home and they started going barefoot. Right, for longer periods of time. And so there was this increase in, all these people are showing up with heel pain. So it must be that barefoot is bad. And I'm like, they're missing the boat here. It's not the shoe. It's the fact that most of us, 1 out of 3, have feet that have gotten weak, very weak over time. And then you just went from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
You wouldn't squat 100 pounds one week and 200 pounds the next week. You'd get hurt and you'd say, oh my goodness, something happened. I'm going to back off a little bit. That's what happened.
Yeah. It's like the time under tension went from 1 hour to 12.
Right.
Yep.
Like that.
So, if you know that your foot is weak, or you're questioning if your foot is weak, or if you've been in foot orthoses and you've been in highly cushioned footwear, it's not like go throw it all out and run around barefoot. It's little dose. Just put your foot on the ground just for a couple minutes. And then again, it's okay. Then you start to feel safe. The foot starts to feel the ground a little bit. And then you just slowly start to add time. And that's that's why we wanted to have that transition chapter, because that is where it's at.
Yeah.
It's an important conversation.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And so now as we start to wrap things up before we get to our lightning round of questions, I talk about clinical stuff here. I also talk about business stuff here, especially for clinicians. So what does it look like to operationalize walking and foot health as a clinical offering versus saying, I'm a generalist, why should I care about this? So what do you say to those clinicians who have that sort of mindset? Or even business owners?
It's a great cash-based offering. So talking about fall risk, talking about foot health can be a really great way to get someone in the door. Doing free weekend screens, bring a friend, you get 5 minutes of my time, and then you can progress on from there if you're interested. I think there's a lot of opportunities with the new mom groups because there's a lot of stroller walking. You've got opportunities at the senior center for the elders walking. And we're trying to bring back that hot girl walk from 2023. So I would love for that to be trending again. And this time on the TikTok, as the kids say. And so I think that there's just a lot of community health impact. Our book is also being published in the UK. We're being published in 12 other languages. Currently, we are headed for more, which is very exciting. But what's interesting about the way it's being approached in the UK is as a public health conversation. More people need to be walking in community. More people need to be encouraging others. We need to have walking groups. We need to have support. so we can gather and do this thing in real life together. And so I think that that's really where, if you are a healthcare or a movement practitioner who has a business, where you can contribute is to give some of your time, get people excited about it, and then you can monetize the gait analysis, you can monetize the shoe assessment. There really is a lot of opportunity to be within your scope of practice and provide that education. Shoe shopping guides are really valuable. Those, if you have an online ecosystem, that can be a nice downloadable top of the funnel PDF that you can share. And so I think there's a lot of people that are excited about this information, and putting it in the right package, I don't believe is that difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I've built my practice on 20 years on foot and gait analysis. And it's because it's an inclusive conversation. Everybody has to walk. Like I said, barring some injury or, trauma, but everybody is walking. So it can, regardless if that's in your toolkit, being able to see if someone feels comfortable in their own skin, are they efficient? Like, these are things that I think that we can be assessing and should be.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree. I think it fits very naturally, certainly into a physical therapy practice. And thanks for all of those tips and tricks for our business owners out there listening. Now, before we get to the lightning round, is there anything that I missed or anything that you want to reiterate for the listeners before we move on? Melissa, let's start with you.
I would say that if you are a practitioner who is hoping to write a book someday, the process of writing a book takes about 2 years. And there are two major channels or ways to go about it. One is self-publishing, where you basically write the manuscript, hire an editor, hire your own publishing agency, and then put it out into the world. And the other is traditional publishing, where you bid for an agent, get selected by one, and the agent goes out and looks for publishing deals where they essentially sell you to a publisher. They sell the rights to produce your book to a publisher. And I think that you see some folks in the healthcare and fitness and wellness space starting to find their voices and writing books and contributing longer format content to the good, as again, of community. And so I think that there is an opportunity, even if it maybe sounds like Mount Everest, you can get this done. Courtney and I had zero experience. We decided to do this. It was like a physical therapist and a chiropractor walk into a bar. We were basically at a friend's wedding, and she was like, let's do this. We bought a book basically that was how to get a book published, and step by step followed it. And so we had zero experience doing this. So this is my just little cheerleading moment for anyone who's out there being like, man, I'm this amazing fill in the blank topic specialist, and I would love to do this. It's doable. It's a lot of work, but it's very doable.
Courtney, how about you? Anything we missed? Anything you want to reiterate?
The word that just keeps coming into my head is passion. We have, it's an honor to work with people. It is a gift that we get to be able to interact with people and help people. And when you are passionate about those things, you're just constantly learning, and you're constantly wanting to, hone in on your trade. And that's what, I think throughout this book, the patient stories, and, when the dedication for the book, it was like, who's this book for? I'm like, it's for my patients. Like, it is for all the people that I have learned from in the past 20 years. And I continue to learn from, that really drive the education. So, I'm always reminded of that what we do is a gift, and, it's just awesome, really.
Couldn't agree more. Okay. So we're going to move on to the lightning round. So, first thing that comes to your head, I think I know the answers to some of these already just after our conversation, but let's get into it. Number 1, barefoot walking, healing practice or overhyped trend?
Healing practice.
Healing practice.
That's what I figured. Okay. Number 2, best walking surface, pavement, grass, sand, or trail?
I mean, can I go all of the above?
Yes.
I mean, and this is why, right? Our foot knows it, like it tells our brain what's happening. So when you walk barefoot on concrete, what are you going to do? You're going to walk softer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're like, your body knows, hey, I'm about to land on something hard. And then when you walk on sand, the foot relaxes a little bit. The fascial compartments start to, pressurize differently. That's what's cool about walking on different surfaces in different textures. It's different sensory inputs. So I'm all of the above on that one.
Melissa, how about you?
I was going to say it depends, but I am going to go the opposite direction and pick grass because there's a really fantastic body of work related to grass walking for those with heel pain. Heel pain, right, Court? Not plantar fascia, it's heel pain. Yeah.
Oh,
The
the
grass
running
walking
one?
study. No, the on grass, the studies on grass.
Yeah, there was a plantar fasciopathy, so recreational
That's right.
runners
Yeah,
that had heel
yeah,
pain and started running on grass, and
yeah,
the findings were really awesome with that. It was
yeah,
basically
yeah,
this helped them.
yeah.
Nice. Well, I will remember that living in New York City. There's some grass. We've got grass around.
Grass.
I'm a
Yes.
little wary walking barefoot in New York, but if it's your own
Fair.
backyard, I think that's probably better. So when I go to my parents in Pennsylvania, I'll walk in
There
their
you go.
grass.
There
Okay.
you go.
Number 3, one change to your own footwear that made the biggest difference to your body.
Listening to Courtney. I was late to the functional shoe party. I'll tell you that. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Courtney,
Yeah,
how
I
about
mean,
you?
that's why I got into all of this. I had bunions and foot pain as a dancer and as a runner growing up. And when I started wearing, like, it was very, I was looking back at some videos when I first started doing all of this. And I had on an Ultra, one of the very like old Ultras. And this thing had some serious cushion on it, and this was I was going from a foot orthotic and a very traditional shoe, but it had a wide toe box. And I put my foot in there with this cranky bunion and I was like, where have you been all my life? Because my foot was like, okay, I'm starting to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, I started to wear less and less shoe. So yeah, it was that wide toe box for me, for sure.
Okay. Question number 4. You can only pick one. 10 minutes of walking or 10 minutes of meditation?
Walking.
I mean, I can't
No
sit
brainer.
still for 10 minutes. So walking is my meditation. So
Exactly. Okay. And last question. It's one I ask everyone. Knowing where you are now in your life and career, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? Courtney, let's start with you.
I wish that I would have strength trained my feet like I strength trained the rest of my body. That was and I'm like in this world, and I didn't know. I just didn't know. And I wish that I would have really started paying attention to those things at a younger age. I was doing the walking. I just didn't have my foot on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do. Melissa, how about you?
I would say my 20-year-old self needs to hear that you're going to be more than just a physical therapist. And I think I was a faculty at Montana State University for 9 years and worked with a lot of undergrads who wanted to be a PT, a chiro, an AT, go to med school, whatever. And everyone is very narrow, right? I'm going to be a doctor of physical therapy. I'm going to be an occupational therapist. This is my career. And I would just tell 20-year-old everyone that you never know what's going to be ahead of you on that career path. And, I met Courtney because we're both alumni of Rock Tape. We were continuing ed instructors. I was a university faculty. I'm now working in digital education. And so having a healthcare focus, I think, can open up lots of doors you are not expecting. And so those of you that are healthcare providers out there, there's treatment, and then there's all sorts of other doors that you may not even know are sitting there.
Yeah. Well, great advice from both of you. Now, before I let you both go, please let us know where they can find you, get the book, and keep learning from you.
I'll go first. My list is shorter. So here's the book. She's a pretty girl. She's yellow and black. Those of you who are looking at YouTube, you can see all the cute little characters that are in our walking groups. You can track me down on Instagram, Dr. Milica McDowell, DPT. My Milica is spelled Milica from my Slavic family. My website is melissamcdowell.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So those are good places to track me down.
Perfect. Courtney?
Dr. Courtney Conley is my website. Gate Happens is my online educational company. We have a ton of resources. I have been putting information out there on like foot exercises and footwear recommendations. It's all there for you. So on the website, gatehappens.com, there's individual programs and programs to help your feet, on YouTube and on Instagram, a lot of free resources. So the Instagram is at Gate Happens and also at Dr. Courtney Conley, and then the same on YouTube. But I really encourage people to just kind of dive into this stuff. And just, there are like foot assessments that you can look at and just pay attention, because it's very eye-opening for people when they start paying attention to their feet.
Yeah. So you encourage people to just kind of get their feet wet, pun intended.
Wow. You walked right into that one.
Oh my God.
Oh, sorry.
The PT puns can go on and on and on. Well, for everyone listening, links to the books and to their platforms and to their social media are all in the show notes. So whatever platform you are listening to right now, just scroll down and one link will get you to all of their great information. So ladies, thank you so much for coming on. It's a great conversation, exactly what I was hoping for. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
And everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great couple of days. And remember, if you like this episode, if you have a friend, a mom, a dad, a cousin, a colleague who needs to listen to this, please pass it along to them, leave us a review, etc., etc. So until next time, stay healthy, wealthy, and smart.